So we're continuing our discussion of uncertainty reduction theory, and we want to talk about how it relates to high and low context cultures. So a high context culture is completely dependent on what is happening in the situation and what the relationship between the two people are as far as how you're supposed to act and react to each other. In a low context culture, communication is very direct. So if there's a problem or a question, or if you're uncertain about something, you just ask that question. Whereas in a high context culture, that would be considered inappropriate. So if you put somebody from a high context culture in a situation they're unfamiliar with, they're going to experience a very high level of uncertainty and anxiety as a result. Whereas a low context culture, they're more likely to ask questions and ask for more information. So for instance, if we had somebody from Japan that needed to take a train from New York and they recently came out here, they might be afraid to ask somebody for help on how to board the train, and instead just follow everybody around them and follow the context. Whereas me, a local, when I had to get on a train, I didn't know how to do it. I immediately started asking everybody around me where we were going, if I was going the right direction. And I didn't feel uncomfortable about it or feel anxious because I knew that other people would respond in kind because I come from a direct culture and I'm part of the American culture.
Okay, so I'm going to be talking about relational uncertainty. Your book defines that as a lack of certainty about the future and the status of a relationship. This is a really interesting part of uncertainty reduction theory because theoretically, if you're at a relatively deep part of a relationship, you're not going to have any kind of uncertainty. But these moments can happen at any time, and really the most inopportune times. For instance, the best one I can think of is if you are a groom waiting at the altar for your bride to walk down the aisle and you're waiting longer than you think you should. Maybe you're at a point in your relationship where she's considering her options and she may not show up.
The first axiom, which is dealing with reducing uncertainty related to verbal communication. And when initially, like you first talk to somebody, or let's use a text message as an example. When you first meet them, they start texting you, you don't know what to expect or what kinds of emoticons they're going to use, or you might not interpret things, you'll have to ask a lot of questions. Whereas once you know somebody really well, just based on their verbal message, you can identify who it is. So for instance, if, let's say, your boyfriend or girlfriend texts you normally, but then you get a message from them and you know clearly somebody else has their phone because it doesn't sound like them, even if it's just a purely verbal message. That would be an example of that first truism related to uncertainty reduction.
Thank you.
You're welcome.